Good morning, everyone. Today back with Harry Potter and the Hallows by J.K. Rowling. Last time we finished at page 170. Let's continue. It's, he muttered, struggling to find words that did justice to the horror of his thoughts. But Lupin said quietly, "I know." Lupin hesitated. "I'll understand if you can confirm this, Harry, but the Order is under the impression of Dumbledore left you a mission." "He did," Harry replied, "and Ron and Hermione are in and out and in on it, and they're coming with me. Can you confide in me what the mission is?" Harry looked into the prematurely lined face, framed in thick but grey hair, and wished that he could return a different answer. "I can, Remus. I'm sorry. If Dumbledore didn't tell you, I don't think I can." "I thought you'd say that," said Lupin, looking disappointed. "But I might still be of some use to you. You know what I am and what I can do. I could come with you to provide protection. There would be no need to tell me exactly what you were up to." Harry hesitated. It was a very tempting offer, though how they would be able to keep their mission secret from Lupin if he were with them all the time, he would not imagine. Hermione, however, looked puzzled. What about Tonks?" "What about her?" said Lupin. "Well," said Hermione, frowning, "you're married. How does she feel about you going away with us?" "Tonks will be perfectly safe," said Lupin. "She'll be at her parents' house." There was something strange in Lupin's tone. It was almost cold. There was also something odd in the idea of Tonks remaining hidden at her parents' house. She was, after all, a member of the Order, and as far as Harry knew, was likely to want to be in the thick of action. "Remus," said Hermione tentatively, "is everything all right? Between you and..." "Everything's fine, thank you," said Lupin pointedly. Hermione turned pink. There was another pause, an awkward and embarrassed one, and then Lupin said, with an air of forcing himself to admit something unpleasant, "Tonks is going to have a baby." "Oh, how wonderful!" squealed Hermione. "Excellent!" said Ron enthusiastically. "Congratulations!" said Harry. Lupin gave an artificial laugh that was smile that was more like a grimace, then said, "So, do you accept my offer? Will 3 become 4? I cannot believe that Dumbledore would have disapproved. He appointed me your defense against the dark arts teacher, after all, and I must tell you that I believe that we are facing magic many of us have never encountered or imagined." Ron and Hermione both looked at Harry. Just to be clear," he said, "you want to leave Tonks at her parents' house and come away with us. She'll be perfectly fine, safe there. To look after her," said Lupin. He spoke with finality bordering on indifference. "Harry, I'm sure James would have wanted me to stick with you." "Well," said Harry slowly, I'm pretty sure my father would have wanted to know why you aren't sticking with your own kid, actually." Lupin's face drained of color. The temperature in the kitchen might have dropped 10 degrees. Ron stared around the room as though he had been bitten to memorize it. While Hermione's eyes swiveled backwards and forwards from Harry to Lupin. You don't understand," said Lupin at last. "Explain then," said Harry. Lupin swallowed. I made a grave mistake in marrying Tonks. I did it against my better judgment, and I have regretted it very much ever since." "I see," said Harry. "So you're just going to dump her and the kid and run off with us?" Lupin ran to his feet. His chair toppled over backwards, and he glared at them so fiercely that Harry saw, for the first time ever, the shadow of the wolf upon his human face. "Don't you understand what I've done to my wife and my unborn child? I should never married her. I've made her an outcast." Lupin kicked aside the chair he had overturned. "You have only ever seen me amongst the Order or under Dumbledore's protection at Hogwarts. You don't know how most of the Wizarding world sees creatures like me. When when they know of me, my affliction, and they can barely talk to me. Don't you see what I've done? Even her own family is disgusted by our marriage. That parents want their only daughter to marry a werewolf, and the child. Lupin actually seized a handful of his own hair. He looked quite deranged. My kind don't usually breed. It will be like me. I am convinced of it. How can I forgive myself? And I knowingly risked passing on my own condition to an innocent child. And if by some miracle it is not like me, then it will be better off 100 times so, without the father of whom it must always be ashamed. Remus, whispered Hermione, tears in her eyes. Don't say that. How could any child be ashamed of you? Oh, I don't know, Hermione, said Harry, and I'll be pretty ashamed of him. Harry did not know where his rage was coming from, but it had propelled him to his feet too. Lupin looked as though Harry had hit him. If the new regiment thinks muggleborns are bad, Harry said, what will they do a half-werewolf whose father's in the order? My father died trying to protect. My father died trying to protect. My father died to try to protect my mother and me. And you reckon he did tell you to abandon your kid to go on an adventure with us? How dare you? Said Lupin. This is not about a desire for danger or a personal glory. How dare you suggest such a... I think you're feeling a bit of the daredevil, Harry said. You fancy stepping Will Sirius's shoes? Harry, no, Hermione begged him, but he continued to glare into Lupin's livid face. I never had believed this, Harry said. The man who told me to fight the bandits, a coward. Lupin drew his wand so fast that Harry had barely reached for his own. There was a loud bang, and he felt himself flying backwards as if punched. As he slammed into the kitchen wall and slid to the floor, he glimpsed the tail of Lupin's cloak disappearing around the door. Remus! Remus! Come back! Hermione cried. Lupin did not respond. A moment later, they heard the front door slam. Harry! Wailed Hermione. How could you? It was easy, said Harry. He stood up. He could feel a lump swelling where his head hit the wall. He was still so full of anger he was shaking. Don't look at me like that, he snapped at Hermione. Don't you start on her, snarled Ron. No, we mustn't fight, said Hermione, launching herself between them. We shouldn't have said that stuff to Lupin, Ron told Harry. He added coming to meet him, said Harry. Broken images were racing each of them through his mind. Sirius falling through the veil, Dumbledore suspended, broken in the midair, a flash of green light, and his mother's voice begging for mercy. Parents, said Harry, shouldn't leave their sons unless they've got to. Harry, said Hermione, stretching out a consoling hand, but he shrugged it off and walked away. His eyes on the fire that Hermione had just conjured. He had once spoken to Lupin about out of that fireplace, seeking reassurance about James, and Lupin had consoled him. Now Lupin's tortured, white face seemed to swim in the air before him. He felt a sickening surge of remorse. Neither Ron nor Hermione spoke, but Harry felt sure that they were looking at each other behind his back, communicating silently. He turned round and caught them turning hurriedly away from each other. I know I shouldn't have called him a coward. No, you shouldn't, said Ron at once. But he's acting like one. All the same, said Hermione. I know, said Harry. But if it makes him go back to Tonks, it'll be worth it, won't it? He could not keep the pity out of his voice. Hermione looked sympathetic, Ron uncertain. Harry looked down at his feet, thinking of his father. Would James have backed Harry in what he had said to Lupin, or would he be angry at how his son had treated his old friend? The silent kitchen seemed to hum with the shock of the recent scene, and with Ron and Hermione unspoken reproaches. The daily prophet Lupin had brought was still lying on the table, Harry's own fact staring up at the ceiling from the front page. He walked over to it and sat down, opened the paper at random and pretended to read. He could not take in the words. His mind was still too full in the encounter with Lupin. He was sure that Ron and Hermione had resumed the silent communications on the other side of the Prophet. He turned a page loudly, and Dumbledore's name leapt out at him. It was a moment or two before he took in the meaning of the photograph, which showed a family group. Beneath the photograph were the wolves. Dumbledore family, left to right. Albus, Percival, holding newborn Ariana, Kendra, Aberforth. Well, I think we'll leave it here, guys, and we'll see you next time. Enjoyed it. Bye.